Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Start the class. So, very good evening, student friends. Today we are going to see one of the important hydrological processes in our CE 401 Water Resources Engineering class. Runoff is the prime hydrological processes which, as a water resources engineer, we are more interested, because this is the quantity of water we are visualizing that is flowing in a stream. That is what we want to store and use it for human developmental activities. Right? Let us see what is this runoff and how to. Okay. See, when there is a rainfall, right? First process, and after all the abstracts, all the losses, infiltration, evaporation, evapotranspiration, initial losses, the reversal. Still, when the rainfall intensity is more than all these losses, the water starts building up on the ground level. But it cannot build up like a column of water. Once it builds up to a particular height, then the slope of the land as well as gravitational force forces the water to move from one higher level to lower level. And at that time, the water flows as a sheet of paper, and that is why we call that as sheet flow. That means it is not directly rainfall and runoff. It's a rainfall process, all the losses, then the water moves as sheet of water. The sheet of water moves in the direction of same slope. When two different slopes meet together, they merge and they take a third slope, which we call that as a runoff. Or when the third slope is a prominent structure course, we call that as stream flow. Right? So this is how the runoff starts. Right? The water which goes here, right? This is rainfall. After all the losses, the water moves as the sheet. We call that as overland flow or sheet flow. And in the same slope direction, when it meets another slope, they take a third direction, that is stream flow, right? So the water, you can see here, the after rainfall or during the rainfall, this is how the runoff starts. It will not start like a river. First it starts as a sheet flow, that is called as overland flow. Then this overland flow joins together into smaller and smaller channels, and this smaller and smaller channels joins with bigger channels and flows from to form a large stream or large river, and the flow in that stream is called as stream flow. Okay, so I have a question here. Here we are first, I don't know whether you have heard this word channel, right? So far you might have studied this channel in your hydraulic engineering, right? Design of prismatic channel, Lazy's regime method to design a regime channel, right? Now my question is not that design. And you also might have heard about a word called canal, right? Channel, canal, right? What's the difference between these two? I think and other, in both the case, water flows from higher energy to lower energy, open channel. But nobody says it as open canal. But all the formula which you derive, whether it is Manning's formula, right, or Jezzy's formula, Lazy's formula, you use it invariably for canal also. Then why we have to name it as a canal, and why we have to name it as a channel? And I think other carriers, Fox Trade, right? Gibraltar Strait, all Strait, that we'll forget about. Only this question you can make it, right? So this stream we call it as a stream flow. Now the water which has entered into the soil in the process of infiltration, right? Depending upon the geological condition as well as the topographical condition. If it is a good aquifer, then all this infiltered water will go as a percolation and reaches the groundwater. And this groundwater also will join either the stream or it may go as a deep groundwater and join somewhere with the ocean. If it joins after a certain period, then we call that as delayed or subsurface flow. Sometimes what happens, the infiltrated water immediately after within a certain time period, it again joins with the stream and we call that as interflow. Okay, or the combined of this interflow and subsurface flow is called as base flow. Why we need to study about this interflow or base flow or groundwater flow is when I want to develop a mathematical relationship between the rainfall and the runoff. Here we are talking about the process, but we are not talking about the time step. Suppose if I want to develop a relationship between today's rainfall and today's runoff, but the observed runoff in the stream may be due to a delayed runoff. That means the water which entered into the groundwater, it enters later and sometime it might have joined. That means the flow is not due to the current rainfall, it is due to the previous rainfall. So then when I want to develop a mathematical relationship, I should remove that stream subsurface flow or groundwater flow. That's why we study in detail about this interflow or delayed flow or sometimes called as groundwater flow. Right? I think now this is a detailed explanation. What is top surface layer, saturated zone, right? Then channel, then finally it goes to the sea. Then depending upon the time period in which the sheet of base flow, direct runoff, that's what I have written. The classification is based on the time delay between the precipitation and the runoff. Direct runoff is rainfall of peak time period PT and runoff RT. Then we call that as a direct runoff. The surface flow, sheet flow, or the prompt interflow. That means within the time step of our modeling, it reaches the stream flow. Eventually, all water will reach the stream or ocean, but the time step is different. Here, the time step which I am telling is our modeling time step. Okay, suppose if I am doing a daily runoff estimation, then last week runoff should not be counted as this week runoff. Then it comes under base flow. Base flow is nothing but delayed flow that reaches the stream through the infiltered water. Right? So then, as usual, this is a good definition for stream flow. It is not just the, it is just the runoff or discharge flowing in a defined path of a stream. So a stream can be defined as a flow channel into which surface runoff from specified basin drains. Right? So stream flow represents the runoff phase of the hydrological cycle. There are certain research which not only just model this hydrologic stream flow alone. There are certain distributed models like finite difference, finite element model, where people used to estimate the sheet flow also. Okay. Why we are more worried, interested about this stream flow is, to the human knowledge, we feel like we are very accurately measuring the precipitation and we can very accurately measure the stream flow. In between, we can maybe very accurate or may not be, but we assume that this precipitation and runoff is the well measured hydrological processes. Right? As usual, when water is flowing in the stream, uh, we have different methods, different techniques to measure this discharge. I think in some of the master's program, this itself is a separate subject, and that subject is called as hydrometry. Hydrometry is only the measurement of stream flow, how to measure the discharge in a stream, which comes under open channel hydraulics, right? And altogether there are several methods, but they are broadly classified into direct method and indirect methods. Direct method means you know that according to continuity equation, discharge Q is equal to area into velocity, right? So you have to measure the area of flow and the velocity of flow. Multiply these two, you will get the discharge, right? Because we cannot put in hydraulics lab, what you do to measure the discharge, you put a big collection tank and you measure the time period for a particular rise in the collection tank. You know the volume of the water collected in a particular time step of t. That volume by t will give you the discharge. But for a river, how will you do that? That's why we employ this method. Direct measurement itself is indirectly, but you are directly measuring the area and the flow of velocity. Multiplication will give you the area discharge through. That method is called as direct method of area velocity discharge measurement. And in all locations, this area and velocity or the flow will not be in the complete cross-sectional area, like in hilly area. The water will be flowing all along several boulders and all these things where velocity measurement is not possible. Right? Then we use the environmental water quality parameter to estimate the discharge. That is called as dilution technique. Right? The third and fourth method, electromagnetic method, ultrasonic method, they are all very accurate and very expensive methods when you want to go for discharge measurement very accurately. This is directly you are measuring the discharge. And some other places we can indirectly measure the discharge also. The hydraulic structures such as the discharge over the weir. There you are not measuring the discharge or area of flow. You know the coefficient of discharge of the weir and then depth of water flowing over the weir. That is what you are developing a CD equation in your hydraulics lab, right? Flow through the weirs, V notch, rectangular notch, right? Broad crested weirs. All these places you will be developing a relationship between discharge and head of water with CD, right? These are all some of them. When the flow is under controlled condition. If the flow is uncontrolled, like a flood discharge in the river, even we cannot use this area velocity method. At that locations, we use this slope area method, right? Consider two stretches apart a length L. Consider these two, apply Bernoulli's theorem, equate the energy at one point to another point, then you will get the discharge. The slope area method, right? So in general, stream flow is measured in the unit of meter cube per second, but still we can express this runoff in rainfall units, that is in centimeters or in mm, depending upon the requirement. And it is also not possible to continuously measure the discharge. And what we do is we used to carry out this discharge measurement program when there is a stabilized flow in the river. Let us assume that I want to measure the discharge in the river or canal. When the water level is rising or falling down, we should not do the measurement, because until I measure the velocity and cross-sectional area, the water level should not vary. That is the first requirement. Then what we have to do, either we have to quickly measure the velocity with the help of some other mechanical means. And that is why this discharge measurement follows in two ways. Right? Now I will come back to the stage discharge relationship later. Right? So the first step in measuring the discharge is measurement of velocity. Right? The first instrument used to measure the velocity is by Leonardo da Vinci, right? You remember he has invented that speedometer, a circle, and then he has rolled that speedometer all along the stream where he has dropped the float and then time taken for that float to reach on the other section. Now he has measured the length and then time. So length by time is nothing but my velocity. But here in this case, when I want to measure the discharge in a stream, there are two ways. One is either you can measure the velocity, average velocity between two sections. So take the cross section at point 1 and point 2, drop your float at point 1 at a higher elevation, then measure the time step for the float to reach the second section. Now you know the average cross section and this average velocity, that is also a float measurement area velocity method. But when the discharge is larger, and it is also very important to accurately know this, then we take another mechanical instrument called as current meter. Current meters or mechanical instruments are used to measure the velocity. Actually what happens, there are two types of current meter like this. The current meter, it is two types. One is vertical axis, another one is horizontal axis. Vertical axis is, there is a series of cups mounted on a shaft, and this is a direction changer, and this is the counterweight. So this current meter is fixed in a vertical rod and immersed in the water. When the water flows with the current, that current will make this series of cups to rotate. Then we know for a given time period how many revolutions these cups have made. Then that number of revolution should be related with the velocity of the flow or current of the flow. But how to develop this relationship between revolution, number of revolution and the velocity? And that is what we call it as calibration of current meters. How do we do this calibration of current meters? Right? See, this vertical axis current meter is used for slightly larger velocity, and this horizontal axis current meter is used for smaller velocity. You can see this propeller system blade, which will be requiring very small current to rotate it. So at larger current this will not work. So at larger current we may have to work with vertical axis current meter. But if I want it, when I keep it in the water, it will give you only number of revolutions per second or number of revolution for the time period I measure. But actually I want the velocity. So in that case, what happens? It is like your experimental work, right? The coefficient of discharge of a notch. You cannot estimate that CD in the field. So what you are doing, you are estimating that coefficient of discharge in the laboratory. How you are estimating? You are first estimating the theoretical discharge and then measuring the discharge. Then the ratio will give you the coefficient of discharge. Similarly, these current meters, when they are manufactured, they are calibrated. What is the calibration? The current meter is connected. This is the rod which is connected. Below is the current meter. You can see these current meters, 3 current meters. And these current meters, which are immersed at a particular depth of water, and it is not in the flowing river, it is a prismatic channel of 100 meters, 150 meters with a width of 5 to 10 meters. And these current meters are mounted on the carriage, which can move at a known speed, right? It's like a jeep, it's like a trolley. right? When you move the trolley with the known speed, which is equal to speed and velocity are same physical process, except that speed is a scalar quantity and vector velocity is a vector quantity. So then that speed is, there is a relationship. For a given speed, you count the number of revolutions and then develop a relationship between the number of revolutions and the velocity. So you have measured the velocity, that is speed of your trolley, and the number of revolutions. Plot it in a graphical sheet and that will give you a linear relationship. So when you know the number of revolutions, from that graph you can estimate what is the velocity, right? So this is called, this derivation of this equation is called nothing but the calibration of current meters. So calibration equation is a unique for each instrument, and each instrument, when it is worked extensively in the field for longer period, more than 6 months or 1 year, again you have to recalibrate it, right? Otherwise there will be a change in velocity. So it is measured by towing tank. I think we have such a facility in CWPRS Pune, as well as one at IIT Madras Chennai, right? Both are used to measure or establish a relationship between number of revolutions and velocity, right? I think this is explanation for this. The towing tank is a long channel containing still water with arrangements for moving a carriage longitudinally over its surface. They are all controlled by computers so that you measure all the parameters. The instrument to be calibrated is immersed at a specified depth. The average value of revolutions per second are determined for a predetermined constant speed v. This is repeated over a complete range of velocities and the best fit linear relationship is formed, and that equation is nothing but the calibration of current meter. I think this is, I told you about velocity measurement by floats. Whenever you are using the float, right, don't consider the velocity you have measured using the float as it is to estimate the discharge, because you might have studied in your hydraulic engineering the cross-sectional velocity. The maximum velocity is not at the top surface, it is at a depth of 0.2 times the depth of flow from the top level, right? That is why for a current meter is also kept at a depth of 0.2 or two locations, 0.2 or 0.6 times of the cross section to take the average velocity. Okay, so whenever you are using the float, don't forget to multiply it with the correction factor. Otherwise, you will be unduly overestimating the discharge. But don't use this current meter for very large streams, right? You may use it in a small stream with rapidly changing water surface and for preliminary surveys. But to establish a good relationship between the rainfall and discharge, accurate measurement of discharge is required, right? And that is why we have to do this area velocity method. But now we go there, back, right? All these discharge programs are carried out in two steps. First one is you identify a day in which the river water level is not rapidly varying, it's having constant. Then you carry out the procedure of measuring the velocity. Then take that velocity and cross-sectional flow and estimate the discharge. But in real life, you need the discharge every day, every second, every minute. Then how will you get that? Then what you have to do? You have to do a number of measurements. When the water level is flowing at different levels, you do the measurement. But whenever you are doing a measurement in the cross section, you can place a rod and identify the depth of, that is a representative water level, right? And that is called as stage of the stream, which you have already measured. You no need to measure again. If you know that level at which water is flowing, see your graph, measure the program and see, oh, when the water is going at this level, this is the discharge. But every time I cannot measure, I cannot see the table, we put it in the form of a pictorial representation, and that is called as stage discharge relationship, right? Stage discharge relationship is nothing but the representative depth of flow called as stage versus the discharge. For example, if you are traveling in trains in many bridges and the piers, you could have seen the markings, right? Like in your staff readings, right? What is that? It is nothing but the depth of flow. Why only depth of flow? When pre-established a relationship between this stage and the discharge, and that level is nothing but the stage for 12 meters, then you no need to go and measure, you can find it. Even if it is between your two measured programs. See, in this graph, all these dotted points, right? Dots are measured discharge, right? When the water level is constant. And when I develop a graph like this, later on I can measure the discharge even at a depth at which I have not measured. And that is the advantage of using this stage discharge relationship. And second one is, this discharge measurement is very expensive program, time consuming and laborious. Every day it is very difficult to measure. Suppose if it is a river of width 1.5 kilometers, every day I cannot go and measure the velocity, right? And also every day the water level may not be at a constant level. It will be varying. Then what happens? At that situations, in real life, every day morning 8:30 you go there and you see in the representative stage what is the depth of flow going on. See this graph and find out what is the discharge, right? So this stage discharge relationship is used in day-to-day discharge measurement programs. Okay, so that is why